is the Monday, December 8th edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Week 14 of the NFL season officially wraps up tonight with the Philadelphia Eagles going into SoFi Stadium to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. A very, very entertaining Sunday of games around the NFL, like we expected. We talked about it last week here on the show. So many impactful games, division leads, first place, wild card spots. And it really all started on Thursday night when the Lions defeated the Dallas Cowboys 44-30, and of course put a wrench into the Cowboys season, dropping them down to 6-1. But so many games throughout the course of the day. AFC North, Steelers, Ravens, we'll talk about that here. We had the AFC South. A lot to talk about there of the Jaguars winning, Colts losing their quarterback. NFC South, Panthers on a bye, Bucks losing to the Saints. A lot to get to here on the show with all the games, of course, Bears and Packers as well in the marquee game in the late window. So let's get right into it over here. Let me bring in my good friend, Ben Allen. Ben, what's going on, buddy? And we should probably let everybody know, back end of the show, we will announce who's our spotlight guest for tomorrow's show as well.
This is true. Yes, this is true. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But first, we got to start with one of those divisions being the AFC South. And the team that seemed like they were going to run away with it potentially there for a little while, the Indianapolis Colts. They are losing Daniel Jones to an Achilles tear. Very unfortunate. They already are dealing with Anthony Richardson done for the year. This leaves them with Riley Leonard, and I'm guessing a lot of dashed hopes for a playoff run for Colts fans. What do you make of this situation? This has got ripple effects beyond just this season for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just an NFL fan, you feel terrible for Daniel Jones, considering just everything he went through last year, the Giants situation, getting released, everyone kind of hating on him and thinking his career is over, to having that resurgent year that we've seen many quarterbacks have, like the Baker Mayfield and the Sam Darnold, the Geno Smiths. Like, Daniel Jones was doing just that. And this is a team that started 7-1, and they were so high about how good they are that they traded 2 first-round picks to get cornerback Sauce Gardner. And everything has just collapsed here over the last month. Besides for the win in Berlin over the Falcons, which went to overtime, they lost all these games. They lost to the Steelers. They lost to the Chiefs. They, of course, lost to the Texans. Now they lose here on Sunday to the Jaguars, and they no longer control their destiny for the playoffs, really, over here. There's potential over here. When you look at the remaining schedule, they may miss the playoffs completely, with the remaining schedule being San Francisco, Jacksonville, at Houston in the next week. They have Seattle coming up. So these are just games over here that are against winning teams, and now Daniel's out for the year. And the ripple effects for this is just massive. First of all, we spoke about Daniel Jones on the show, how great he has been over the course of the year, that he was in line to become the future franchise quarterback in Indianapolis, and they were going to give him a lucrative contract this offseason before he hits the open market. An Achilles tear, as we all know, is a very significant injury. If you are a fan of Indiana sports, you're very well aware of your star basketball player having the same injury, Tyrese Halliburton. So you're aware of this. It's a 8-9 month recovery here. So the start of next season is already in question here. So if the Colts want to go into next year with Daniel Jones as their guy, we're looking at a situation where, are they going to franchise tag him? Are they going to be like, maybe we don't have to tag him? Maybe we could, get him back on a 1-year prove-it deal. Who will be your quarterback? Do you bring back Anthony Richardson and let him get all the first-team reps in the summer? Do you sign somebody in free agency? You obviously don't have the first-round pick the next 2 years. All the moving parts here are very, very significant. And again, like we said, for a team that started 7-1, for a team that had head coach GM a little bit on the hot seat, there are some questions here how this season ends, and see how ownership takes all of this in. So it's a crazy fall for a team that was so hot to start the year, that looked like one of the very best offenses in the NFL, had a potential MVP candidate at running back of Jonathan Taylor, and things are crashing down right now. And it sucks for Daniel Jones, but there are a lot of future questions here with this organization, with this team, with this quarterback. And that's not going to be answered till the end of this season, and we'll see how the year ends. But we said this 2 weeks ago on the show, on a Monday morning show. that the AFC South is super tight. And when you look at the remaining schedules, there was a possibility the Colts might miss it. And I said that here before the Daniel injury. And now with Daniel getting hurt, they're in a situation right now where this is something nobody could have seen coming. And I just feel terrible for Daniel because, like we said, he went through so much last year and he looked like he was having fun again. And now going through this, I will say one thing about him. I'm going to give him a lot of credit because he's been playing with a fracture in his fibula and then he tore his Achilles on Sunday and clearly he was in pain. He went back down. He refused to take a cart. He walked on his own into the locker room. And then something I've never seen before, he came back in the third or fourth quarter to be there with Riley Leonard to help him with the what he's seeing on the iPad and what's going on over here in the game and what are the play calls. This is somebody who is as true of a competitor as there is, as great of a teammate there is in the NFL. All of his former teammates, some of them who have been on the show in the past, have said that. And I thought that was really, real cool of him, but a really, really terrible way for his season to end.
It's pretty wild to see. It's such like the easy cop out thing because we really don't know the answer as to what we're going to see with Riley Leonard, but this is kind of the kiss of death, right? Like, it's hard to imagine that they're going to be able to get anything really rolling with this.
Riley Leonard didn't look terrible. Again, he's but Anthony Richardson was always your backup this entire year, and he also had a freak injury where he was in the locker room before a game doing some band work, and the band came back into his face. Yeah. So I don't think he's been ruled out for the year yet, but that's a situation where he's been on IR for more than a couple months now, and there's no return in sight. Last that Shane Steichen said after Sunday's game. So again, looking at the remaining schedule here for them, for other teams in that division, they have the biggest climb of all of them, and losing the Texans game, losing the Jaguars game, and not to mention losing that Chiefs game as well, because that could be a potential tiebreaker and wild card situation. Like they're not in a situation right now where they are going to make the playoffs. And last I saw using the Athletic Playoff Simulator, their chances to make the playoffs is at 34%. So it went from 91% before that Chiefs game down to 34% right now. And I think it's even lower with the injury.
Seahawks and 49ers are going to be the teams that they have coming up here. Not a whole lot of relief. Losses to those push them down to 8 and 7. Okay, we got to go ahead and talk about another division here in the AFC, that being the North. Busy day on Sunday, Ari. What did you take away from everything, including my Ravens losing?
Obviously, big win for the Steelers. I have a lot of questions about the officiating and how the ruling was done in that game with the Aaron Rodgers interception that became an Aaron Rodgers completion to himself, to the Isaiah Likely touchdown that was overturned, which again, you need, evidence to overturn a play on the field, and they all of a sudden went through. He didn't have enough steps. Like I just have a lot of questions with if that one is overturned, how is this one overturned? I have a lot of questions about that. But the simple reality also when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens is this is not a team that has played with the team that we know the Baltimore Ravens are. Like, we can make all the excuses about the officiating, all this different stuff. This is the 5th time they've lost this year at home. That is an unheard of stat for a team like Baltimore, who always has an home field advantage. And for most of this game, Aaron Rodgers really looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers. And part of this also, you got to give credit to Mike Tomlin, who has been through a lot of heat over the last week about his future, the fire Mike Tomlin chants. There were reports out there about his contract, all these different things out there, and the team rallied behind him and, of course, got this win. You look at the current state of the AFC North right now, the Steelers have a massive game coming up next week, Monday Night Football, against the sneaky hot Miami Dolphins, who are now 6-7 on the year. After that, their remaining schedule is at Lions, at Browns, and then Week 18 versus the Ravens. They now control their destiny over here in the AFC North. But again, those are some tough games over here. But you look at the Ravens' remaining schedule, the team, of course, just lost and now is 6-7 on the year. Their schedule is, if anything, harder. They have at the Bengals, who, of course, they lost to at home on Thanksgiving night. Then you have the Patriots, who, of course, are 11-2 on the year. Then you go to Green Bay to take on the Packers, and you finish the year in Pittsburgh. So 3 of their last 4 games of the year are going to be on the road, which I guess might be good news considering they lost 5 times this year so far at home. But again, very, very tough challenges there. And then probably the biggest one that we should probably talk about is as well over here is the Bengals, who looked like everything was breaking their way. I mean, a Steelers win would have actually been good for them over here on Sunday. And of course, in that game versus the Buffalo Bills, Joe Burrow in the first 3 quarters of the game looked like he was unstoppable. The first 3 possessions of that game for the Bengals offense were all touchdowns. The ball placement was incredible. The T. Higgins touchdown in the first quarter. I mean, to put the ball in that spot and T. Higgins to make that catch, it looked like the Bengals were on fire. This is a team right now that can maybe turn it around. And in the fourth quarter, 28-18, Bengals leading with under 9 minutes remaining. And then all of a sudden, of course, Bills win 39-34. This is not because of the Bengals defense. Of course, Joe Burrow, interception to Christian Benford, takes it to the house. The very next possession, another interception. And of course, that was basically it. They tried to come back. It fell short. And that was that for them. Bengals are not officially out. There is still this crazy scenario where they could get in. It's not so crazy, but it's a bit crazy. It would have been easier if they won today, but they would have to win out again, like we've been saying, and they're going to need the Steelers to lose twice and the Ravens to lose twice, with one of those losses being to the Bengals. That's the math of the year, if anybody cares, for the Cincinnati Bengals, who the NFL is better of Joe Burrow, Ben. You know that, but
I had to come back on screen just so I could judge you. I needed you to see my face on screen while you said all of these different scenarios out. Ari wants the Bengals to be in the playoffs more than I think he wants anything else in life.
I mean, it's still possible. That's all I'm going to say.
This is true. It is indeed.
I mean, well, 1 second, Ben. Let me ask you like this: you watch Steelers football games, you watch Ravens football games.
Yes, I would rather watch the Bengals in the playoffs.
Yes.
Even as a Ravens fan, Joe Burrow is more fun to watch. Well, Lamar Jackson's a lot of fun when he makes sound decisions.
That was not a great performance there. And listen, last week versus the Bengals was awful. This week, at least it was better, right, for Lamar. There were still, I mean, he was running. Yeah,
don't take a snap on the final play of the game.
Okay, fine. But we're talking about 3 straight games with no touchdowns. I mean, at least there was, something going on over here. But it's been that type of a year in Baltimore. I mean, this past week, we all know the rules of practice is do not touch the quarterback. Guess what happens in practice this week? Someone steps on Lamar Jackson's ankle. I mean, that's kind of what it's been, that type of a year for a player who's had ankle injuries, knee injuries, toe injuries, all of them. And of course, he missed practice Thursday, came back on Friday, played on Sunday, but something just feels off. The energy's not there. You watch the Ravens a lot. There's like a Baltimore energy of a team that they've had the last couple of years where it feels like it's missing this year. I don't know what it is. So they have a big one coming up again next week, like we said, at the Bengals. They just lost to the Bengals at home. Now they're going to Cincinnati, and we'll see what happens there. But the Steelers are probably big Bengals fans next week as they try to get a bit of a lead here in the AFC North.
Let's swing over to the NFC, sticking in the North. I assume that you want to take this time and dedicate it to J.J. McCarthy, correct?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the Vikings, who got shut out last week and then got a shutout of their own this week. I think it's the first time in a lot of years that's ever happened. But no, we're not talking about the Vikings here today. The NFC North, fantastic matchup between the Bears and Packers in that late window. Bears lose, took up the entire game, was awesome, and it really felt like a real rivalry. Both these teams hate each other. There was the entire Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur element of it going into the game. Hard hits. You got to earn every single yard. You felt it. There was a play in this game. Kyle Monangai, the Bears running back, runs into Edgerrin Cooper of the Packers, and you see Cooper's helmet, pieces of his helmet flying off. Like, it really felt like one of those real rivalry games. And it was really, really fun to watch. And of course, the Packers come out on top. Bears losing this game. They go from the 1 seed in the NFC all the way down to the 7 seed in the NFC with that loss. The Packers slide up to the 2 seed right now. The Rams are at number one, pending tonight's game with the Philadelphia Eagles and LA Chargers. But this is another division right now where it's super interesting because, again, you look at the remaining schedules of all these teams, and it's like you look at a team like Detroit who just got that big win on Thursday night. They essentially now, because they beat the Bears back in week two, they're in a situation right now where if they're able to just take care of business their remaining games this year, they'll be able to leapfrog over the Bears at the end of the year. And just looking at the NFC and how stacked it is this year, everyone has been saying, hey, we're going to get 3 teams out of the NFC North. I would probably go slow it down over here with that because you're looking at a situation right now where we're looking at 3 teams from the NFC West, and then only 2 teams from the North are going to make it. So the Packers and Bears still play each other again in 2 weeks. The Lions and Bears play each other at the end of the year in week 18. So there's a scenario over here where that week 18 Bears Lions game could be for the final playoff spot. Again, Packers and Bears still got to play each other. That's a big one. If Green Bay takes care of business there, we're looking at a scenario where that week 18 Bears Lions game could be for the final wild card spot in the NFC. So a lot of moving parts here, but when you look at all of this big picture over here, it's very interesting to see. Last year we got 3 NFC North teams making the playoffs. I don't think we get that this year. The 3 teams from a division is going to be from the NFC West. One of these teams will be out right now with the Lions, but again, like we said, the Lions play the Bears in week 18. The remaining schedule we hear for the Lions is a game versus the Rams in LA versus their former quarterback Matthew Stafford next week. Then they have the Steelers, then they're at Minnesota, and they finish the year with that game with Chicago. But just going back to the Packers here with that win, Jordan Love having all his pieces back from Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, Luke Musgrave really stepped up in this game. The offensive line has been much better, and the defense able to close it. Again, we're going to talk about head coach candidates here in the coming weeks. We did it a couple of weeks ago. Jeff Hafley is going to be among the very, very hot ones here in the NFL, keeping the Bears essentially scoreless in the first half in this game, and of course, sealing the game at the very end with the Keyshawn Nixon interception. That defense is for real. It's an ascending group. You see all of them as a whole getting better week in and week out. The defense has not been a problem this year. When they went through that little funk this year, and there was that weird question to Matt LaFleur about his future. That was about the offense. The offense now getting back into rhythm. Defense has been great all year. This team is really fun to watch. Is why I picked them to make the Super Bowl before the year. And again, they have a very tough schedule as well over here down the stretch, but they control their destiny over here. They right now have the 2 seed in the NFC. And of course, we'll see how that ends over here this year. And again, round 2 between Matt LaFleur and Ben Johnson coming up in 2 weeks. That should be really fun. It's a Saturday night game on Fox.
All right. And that other division that you said is probably going to be eating up a lot of those spots in the playoffs in the NFC West. What'd you take away from them on Sunday?
Yeah, we spoke about the NFC West. Fascinated by this division as well because the Rams, they went through their game last week versus the Panthers, and everyone was like, oh, what is this? I guess the team's allowed to have one bad game a year. I mean, that's fine with them. And they come back over here this week into a situation versus the Cardinals and just take care of business. I don't know if I even had too much of a focus on that game in the late window. I was more focused on the Bears and Packers game on the second screen than the red zone screen for me. But every second I went out to see what's going on in that game, it's like another touchdown was happening. It's Puka Nakua. It's one of the tight ends. It's Blake Corum. It's Kyron Williams. I mean, just going down the field, down the field, down the field. That's the Rams that we've been used to all year. The Matthew Stafford MVP train is probably back on over here. And this is a division that is probably the most fun division right now in the NFL. Looking at the 10-3 LA Rams, the 10-3 Seattle Seahawks, and of course the 9-4 San Francisco 49ers. What makes this division most interesting is the fact that 2 of those teams have the Colts coming up. That is the Seahawks and the 49ers, and they're getting the Colts at a time where they're obviously spiraling out of control with no Sauce Gardner, now no Daniel Jones. those games look far different than they did a few weeks ago. So that changes a lot of things. Really, when you look at the 49ers remaining schedule, they have the Titans next week. Then they have the Colts without Daniel Jones. That is obviously a big welcome gift for teams like that. The Seahawks, they have the Colts coming up next week, again, without Daniel Jones. The big game of here of them all is a Thursday night game in 2 weeks when the Seahawks will host the LA Rams. So that division, another one, it's going to go down to the very end of the year. And that's one where I think the division winner could potentially end up getting the number one seed in the NFC and the coveted bye in the first round of the playoffs. But by far the most entertaining division. But when you look at all the remaining schedules, the Rams, they have the Lions coming up, not an easy game. They have the Seahawks on that Thursday night game on a short week after playing the Lions, who are a very aggressive team. Where you out? Your bodies will be feeling it the next day. Having a short week coming up is not ideal. So that makes everything over here very interesting. The fact that the two teams underneath the Rams over here have the Colts coming up, who are, like I said, are kind of unraveling. So all these divisions around the NFL are very interesting. This NFC West one is you got to have your popcorn now because it's gonna get really, really fun.
Well, a lot of these times, a lot of these teams we talked about are good teams, and they don't necessarily have the issues that some of the bottom teams are dealing with. And one of the things when your team has issues is everyone looks at the head coach and says, "Hey, what are you doing right now? We need a hot seat check here, Ari. What are some of the seats that are heating up around the league as we have now seen quite a few teams eliminated after this week's games?"
Yeah, it's probably like the one topic that I'm working on the most over here at this time of year, and texts, calls, checking in. What have you heard? What do you think? We'll do this quickly because we did this a couple Tuesdays ago. We went through all of it. Right now, the teams that I'm watching and people across the league are watching is Las Vegas head coach Pete Carroll. I think that's a situation where it could be one and done. They already fired Chip Kelly. They fired a special teams coordinator. They've made a lot of moves. Sadly, the Pete Carroll experiment has been a failure, and would not surprise me if that is a one and done situation. Atlanta, they lost again just now on Sunday. They lost to the Seahawks 37-9. They lost last week to the Jets 27-24. They're now 4-8 on the year. They don't have their first round pick. Michael Penix is out for the year with an ACL injury. Drake London has missed the last couple of weeks. Raheem Morris, Terry Fontenot, really the entire organization up from top to bottom. That's a situation where a lot of people are keeping a close eye on it. I called it a hot spot a few weeks ago. I would still consider it to be the hot spot around the NFL. Arizona, that's another one where I wouldn't call it as hot as Atlanta, for example. I think there has been people there who want to, give some patience to Jonathan Gannon, to Monty Austin Ford. They obviously have lost over here a bunch of games in a row, 5 straight games. I think it is, what is it, 10 of their last 11 games they have lost over here on their schedule. The only win was the Cowboys game on Monday night. They've had a lot of injuries this year, and that's probably worth mentioning. And also, I think part of the reason why there's a chance they'll be safe over here is the Kyler Murray situation, who they've been saying all these different things about Kyler Murray, foot injury, might come back. Let's put him on IR. He needs a second opinion. Still not ready. Let's rule it off for the year. Let's explain what's going on over there. It's very similar to what Daniel Jones went through with the Giants, Russell Wilson with the Broncos, Matt Ryan with the Colts, Jimmy Garoppolo with the Raiders. Injury guarantees. If Kyler Murray actually would get injured, seriously injured in a game, another $20 million would become guaranteed a couple years from now. The Cardinals don't want that. That's why he's not playing anymore. He's not part of their future plans. So as a result, I could see a scenario here when the season is over where Monty and Jonathan Gannon, they're like, hey, we inherited Kyler Murray. We didn't pay Kyler Murray. That was never our quarterback. Jacoby Brissett has been much better for this system. We're not going to have Jacoby guaranteed as the guy next year, but you see what a different quarterback could do for our offense. So let us pick our guy and let's get another year. So that's one where I'm not confident it's per se over, but definitely keep an eye on it over here in these next few weeks. They have the Houston Texans in Houston coming up next week. Other teams we're keeping an eye on: Cleveland head coach Kevin Stefanski. That's one where people are monitoring. I'm not sure if anything happens there. I think the front office is safe, but the head coach, one to watch for sure. Miami, they've won a bunch of games here in a row. They're now 6-7, have a chance to get to 500 on Monday Night Football versus the Steelers. That's one where it's kind of cooled off in league circles where people are like, okay, this team is still playing for Mike McDaniel. They clearly have not quit on him. They currently have an interim GM in Champ Kelly. Tua still has a lot of guaranteed money next year. Do we just run it back one more year with Mike, maybe make Champ the GM for a year and see where this takes us? Again, not for sure, but league circles, that's what they're talking about right now. And then the Giants with the GM, we spoke about it last week. That's another one over here that people are watching. But that's kind of the current hot seat roundup around the NFL. There's always a surprise. AFC North, Steelers, Ravens. If one of them don't make the playoffs, whichever one it is it time to pull the plug? Is there a mutual parting? Is there a trade? All that stuff is going to keep on heating up over here in the next couple of weeks around the NFL. But that's a quick roundup of where we are right now in the NFL.
And a lot of those teams that have hot seats are going to find themselves in the conversation for having a top pick in the upcoming draft. We saw a lot of teams, like I mentioned already, eliminated from playoff contention. That means that your draft pick is likely to be good if you still have it. Let's dive into this, Ari. What do you make of the updated draft picture?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the current NFL draft order, it got a massive shakeup here in Week 14 with the Tennessee Titans beating the Cleveland Browns, the New Orleans Saints beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Giants on their bye now leapfrog all the way to the number one overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. But what makes this so interesting is the Giants were actually in a very similar situation, if people recall. I think it was last year, and Drew Lock came in, and Malik Neighbors, they had this crazy game versus the Colts. They won that game, and that dropped them in the draft order from number one down to number three. That's how they got Abdul Carter. That's how they didn't get number one overall pick, which could have been Cam Ward, could have been a trade down. I don't know what it could have been there, but this has happened to the Giants before. But when you look at the Giants' remaining schedule, and when you look at the fact that I believe, and many people around the NFL believe, that GM Joe Shane is essentially fighting for a job and you want to see your team win some games, I can see a scenario here where the Giants win a couple of games. As a result, lose this number one spot. The remaining schedule, off the top of my head, they have a game with the Commanders, the Vikings, the Raiders, who are number two. That could be a doozy of a tinkathon matchup coming up over here in a few weeks with 1 versus 2. And then they finish the year with the Dallas Cowboys. So Giants number one right now, but there's a lot more shakeup over here coming in this draft order as we get to the final weeks of the year. As you guys saw in the graphic just now, Giants are 1, Raiders are 2, Titans are 3, but Browns are 4. But that is 3 2-win teams and a bunch of 3-win teams. And some of these teams have to play each other. And of course, right there at number 9 is our first team who has traded their first round pick with the Falcons, who have to give that pick to the Rams, who right now are on top of the NFC North. So that is kind of where we are right now in the draft order. But I guarantee you this will shake up a little bit. And it would not surprise me one bit if Jackson Dart, who is ultra competitive, is going to win a game or two over here. As a result, drop the Giants down over there a little bit.
It's going to be an interesting draft, particularly if some of these teams hang around. Could be some trades coming up. We always say that, and it never quite lives up to it this year.
This year is the year. If the Giants get number one or the Titans get number one, be ready for a trade down. It's happening.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that means it's time for us to announce who's going to be our spotlight guest this week for tomorrow's episode.
Let's do it. I'm really excited about this. We're going to have a father-son duo on the show here tomorrow. We will be joined by Patriots executives Alonzo Highsmith and AJ Highsmith on the show. Alonzo, of course, is a legend. Everybody knows him. The name Alonzo Highsmith from his playing days, from the U, from maybe you know him from his boxing career, maybe you know him from his time with the Packers, the Browns, the Seahawks. and of course now of the Patriots. One of the great minds around the game of football, and he and his son AJ, who has worked with a number of teams around the NFL, from the 49ers to the Bills, the Titans, came over to the Patriots this year. They joined us here on the show to talk about their career paths and their journeys and working together for the first time this year. Alonso has been there for a couple years. AJ's now there for his first year. And of course, we know the New England Patriots are one of the very best teams in football this year, currently on their bye, but 11-2 on the year. They've won 10 straight games. And the work that the front office has done to bring in those players for Mike Vrabel and everyone else on that staff, AJ and Alonso are a part of that. Alonso was a big part of drafting Drake May just last year. He went to a couple of UNC games to see him live. So we spoke about all this stuff. Really fun conversation. It's the first time we've ever done a father-son duo here on the show, and that is going to be coming to all of you here on tomorrow's episode of NFL Spotlight. But that will do it here for our Monday, December 8th edition of the show. Like I said, we will be back here tomorrow with our special Spotlight guest, and we will see all of you then.